Margie Osmond, CEO of the Australian National Retailers Association, live from our Sydney CBD studio. Margie, welcome into the show. For those who have said retail sales are stuck in a rut, the market talk today on Dow Jones Newswires is saying quite the opposite. What are your members saying?
Well, look, I think they'd say to you that business hasn't been bad, given that the first quarter of every calendar year is usually pretty grim. The March figures give us our 11th consecutive month of an uptick. Admittedly, March itself was a bit of a pee-wee uptick. It was 0.1%, which is not huge, but it's nevertheless in positive territory.
Yeah. You must be licking your chops at the fact that the RBA did nothing yesterday. We're looking at this belief, and Comsec just released this finding that low stable rates, the lift in wealth levels are supporting consumer spending. Look at that pop in home improvement as the housing market still is on song. 12% in March. That is the strongest rise in 7 years, Margie.
Yes, it is very good. Look, you know, even though I've said this was a bit of a pee-wee at 0.1%, effectively year on year we're sitting at 5.7% growth against a long-term average of just over 6. Having said that, the other thing that's interesting in New South Wales in particular, which is the standout winner at the moment, not only did they have a big boost in homewares, which is normally a dead giveaway of a booming property market, but an 11% increase in recreational gear, which tells you that the weather was a lot warmer than anybody expected. So achieving a 0.1% growth in March was probably a pretty sound outcome, given retailers expected colder weather.
All right, now we transition. We've got to put on our doom and gloom hat, which is kind of your adept at making these segues. The budget. Is the budget the deal breaker for your sector? What are the signs and signals to date that would suggest to you it's all overblown versus there are some headwinds ahead?
Well, look, I think we're already seeing those headwinds, to be honest, Carsten, because the March figures were okay because it is an uptick. I have grave fears for April and May, simply because I think a lot of this doom and gloom discussion has led to a very audible snapping shut of purses and wallets across the country. Having said that, though, next week is a great opportunity for people's confidence to be restored, that things are not going to be quite as bad as anticipated.
Yeah, isn't that a perennial audible snapping shut of wallets, though, around budget time? Because we get all these kites sort of flowing to test waters, and they're invariably ones that then get put back in the box.
Yes, that is obviously the case. We've seen it again and again and again over the last decade with budgets. Unfortunately, though, it's a show-and-tell game that has some very real impacts now on the economy, given the sensitivity and how skittish sentiment is.
When you reflect on the Commission of Audit, so it's sort of almost a 1-2 punch, one writer described it this morning as a cross between H&R Block and Peter Costello's 90s audit. Is that how you would sum it up, or you'd style it differently?
Well, I'm not certain I could be anywhere near that colourful, Carsten, but I would say that we actually welcome the Commission of Audit because we think it's a good thing for government to look at themselves the same way a business is forced to. So that's a good start in the first instance. But I think now the trick is to be very clear and very transparent about what they are and are not going to do, because people need certainty. And I think the other issue that we've got to be cognizant of here is, if you look at the prices data that came out today, utilities, health, education, very significant growth in prices in that space. But if you look at retail, we're very, very low in the growth sector, and year on year it's only about 2.3%. So effectively retail is keeping those prices down for the rest of the household budget, given those other increases. So whatever you do to retail in this space is going to have a larger impact.
Are you at risk of a deflationary spiral from everything you've just said there?
Well, I would hope not. I would hope not. But we have for some time been talking about, the deflationary nature of food prices, for example, which makes it even more interesting that we're having yet another competition review when manifestly the sector that's keeping prices down and giving consumers the best deal is, supermarkets and the larger retail sector.